Ladies and gentlemen, we have another incredible album to review today, Gordon Stout's 1977 Music for Solo Marimba. If you are a marimbist or familiar with the marimba/percussion community, of course you know the name Gordon Stout. But why is he so important? What started him on a journey to becoming one of our most forward-facing marimbists? Well, I think it starts here in this 1977 album. I once again purchased this from VAP Media. The album is described as the following. Gordon Stout's debut album, Music for Solo Marimba, was recorded in 1977. Music for Solo Marimba set the standard for both performance brilliance and recording quality. It is very special for a number of reasons, some of which are it was recorded on Claire Omar Musser's own personal King George marimba. Wow. Claire Omar Musser was at the recording session for the entire time, and it's the very first recording of Two Mexican Dances, a very popular marimba work. Let's dive in more into that instrument and Musser's presence at the recording session from the liner notes. The instrument used on the recording was definitely unique. It was not only one of the famous 100 King George marimbas, manufactured by the Deegan Company, but this particular one was built for it was the one Musser built for himself. And when he agreed to record this album, there was a whole bunch of contacting, and Musser ended up actually attending himself. Gordon Stout records two works by Musser on this CD, a prelude and an etude, but to the delight of all, the liner says, Musser stayed throughout the entire session, during which innumerable topics of mutual interest were discussed. That sounds absolutely incredible. I love Musser, and Stout is such an incredible marimbist. I've only ever seen him play live once, and of course it was when he was much older and a different player. I'm very excited to see him at the height of his powers here, and what he has to say in his debut album for marimba. This is a 35-minute album, which I think is great, actually. That's not terribly long, but marimba performance is intense on the ears and on the player. So putting together 35 minutes of solo marimba music is no small feat. I have recently entered my own debut album into the annals of marimba records, and I guess it's about 45 minutes, and it was really, really, really hard. So 35 minutes of solo marimba, mine was duet. Solo marimba is incredible. Let's go ahead and get into it. We start off with Two Mexican Dances for Marimba. Starting with a piece that is now familiar to so many marimbists is lovely, and it allows this crazy marimba sound to shine through. It's obviously antique. This is not a typical modern marimba recording, but I love it. It's warm with good attack and is really quite charming. Coming from the composer himself, this is a fast, virtuosic, and confident performance of a piece that has become a standard. I need to learn and record Two Mexican Dances for myself pretty soon. Movement 2 is charming, entertaining, and with motifs that keep you engaged. Very vibrant playing from Stout here. This is performed incredibly well and very enjoyable with a lot of lightness and character. Gordon Stout then plays three of his own etudes that I've played some of. I've recorded Etude 1, and it's not something I would ever think to put on an album, but it belongs here fine. I'll have more thoughts on this later. It is a wonderful etude with multiple very striking motifs, and it's performed very, very well by the composer Stout. I'm familiar with Etude 2. It is quite difficult and is performed with rapid virtuosity here. Again, right now I'm still only 5 minutes into the album, so I'm figuring out what Stout is putting together here as a concept. Etude number 3 is a study in multiple octave interval precision. Stout is really showing off here, displaying what marimba prowess can look like. Another two etudes from a different group, Etudes 6 and 9, are designed to be a bit lengthier with complex musical form. Etude 6 seems to be a chorale with wide hand-stretching intervals. Etude 6 is one of the longest tracks of the album at over 3.5 minutes. Keeping up these rolls for that long is quite a physical feat, as well as a musical challenge to keep track of the harmonics in the polytonal area Stout seems to be using. As a musical endeavor, I'd say it begins to bore a bit, but as an etude, I can see the value in it. Etude 9 is impressively marked by extremely fast embellishments. Once again, this seems to be Stout proving his mastery and comfort on the instrument. The polytonal area of harmony I was referring to earlier, it's really quite similar to Claire Omar Musser's style. Obviously, he was in attendance and must have loved it. I don't know a very apt term for it. It has some extremely traditional harmonic motion, but the marimba itself seems to inflect some highly rhythmic and chromatic phrases that are quite unique. It is similar to the rapid harmony and chromaticism you'd see in mid-century ragtime, so I'm sure there are more apt descriptors out there. I may just need to educate myself on that period of music. And another two etudes. Etude 11 is a simple two-mallet work, while Etude 12 is more complex and is dedicated to Musser. The link here is obviously very strong. 12 is impressive with some interesting motifs as well as lovely pentatonic motion, again performed with speed and skill by Stout. All of our pieces so far were composed by the performer, performed by the composer. Now we have a piece written by the performer's brother. So this is Piece for Marimba by Richard Stout, a short piece from Gordon's brother in which Gordon uses what I imagine would be an early version of two-toned mallets as described in the liner notes. I actually don't quite understand how the texture in this piece is achieved. It has a really fast three-note roll as well as an active bass line. It's a treat to be confounded by a marimba texture. I can't find a video, so I need to, I guess, get the music and figure out how it could be done. But a lovely piece, and obviously intrigues me quite a bit. I don't often run into marimba textures that I don't understand. Next, we have two works from Musser, both with piano accompaniment. They are both performed exactly as I imagine Musser should be performed, which is really vindicating for my own performances. I just recently recorded the whole tone etude. They are performed with relentless speed, energy, and vibrance. Musser etudes and preludes are such important foundational works for marimba. It is lovely to hear a powerful performance from Stout that obviously had the blessing of Musser himself. Next, we have Sonata number 6 in E major by J.S. Bach. It's exciting to hear Bach performed with the clarity and endearing sound of Stout and this marimba. This gavotte is lovely, performed with a no-nonsense clarity by Stout. That's not to say he doesn't have wonderful shape and phrasing. He has both. But even more, this Bach performance strikes me as being free from the immense pressure marimbists often put on themselves as they perform Bach. I wanted to highlight what's mentioned in the program notes about the Bach. It says, the movements recorded herein will hopefully demonstrate the ability of the marimba to produce unique and artistic results through some of the greatest music in the Western tradition. So, Stout is trying to do something specific here that, again, I'll wait till the very end of the album to talk about. Next, we have our Suite for Solo Guitar by Alec Wilder. I am intrigued by this work. Only the first movement of 4 is presented, and I hope the full thing shows up in Stout's later recorded works, and I can review that at a later point. It is a piece interesting enough to pique my interest to hear more and judge it more completely. However, it doesn't seem to have become the staple of repertoire forecast by Stout in the liner notes. Perhaps a full recording of it on this album would have pushed the piece further. And we're already at the final piece of this album, Tambourine Chinois. I'm a bit disappointed with this being the closer for such a great album. I mean, this is a fun piece, and it is performed very well, but I feel the thrust of this album, to talk more completely about what I hinted at twice, I feel the thrust of this album is to make a case for the marimba, to showcase broad virtuosity and extreme technical and expressive capability. Tambourine chinois, I mean, at this point, it must have already been performed for years on xylophone per George Hamilton Green's arrangement. It is fun and bright, but it's also dangerously light and toy-like on an album that I feel should be closing with something much meatier and heavier. And that's the album. It is wonderful to hear Stout at the peak of his technical prowess. The album makes a strong argument for the marimba being a worthy vehicle for extreme technical virtuosity as well as musical expression. The sound quality is charming, and the performances are sublime. I am only disappointed with repertoire selection. Stout proves his point quickly with skillful performances of etudes and preludes, and shows what can be achieved through Mexican dances and the guitar suite, as well as solidifying his case with Bach. But there is a missing piece of this album. Stout is applying all of this skill to the lightest banquet of pieces. There is nothing heavy for him to sink his teeth into. That, in a way, is brilliant. That this album so obviously highlights the need for serious marimba compositions and simultaneously proves that the instrument is worthy of that effort. For that reason, this is a very important album. 9 out of 10. Have you listened to this album? Have you heard Gordon Stout play? Has the marimba ever gotten the high art pieces that it so desperately needs? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for listening to another marimba album review, and I'll see you next week.